Dave. It seems that when I originally posted the Phil Hanson episode, I put the wrong file in there. I don't know how that happened, but what I'm going to do here is I am going to share with you the Phil Hanson episode. So check it out. It's going to be great. This is actually me and Phil talking. As before, I won't go through the super long introduction because you've already had to sit through that probably more than once. But make sure you check out my friends at Booking Protect, bookingprotect.com. We are posted a great article about rebuilding trust with your audience after the pandemic over at the We Will Recover website, which you can find at wewillrecover.live. We Will Recover is a really great initiative put together by Einar and Martin and the team at Activity Stream. So check that out. There's people from all over the world there helping out, contributing ideas, webinars, resources, all kinds of great stuff. So check it out. There's a Book and Protect article there that just went up last week. It's great about rebuilding your trust. Check out the Booking Protect blog. We have a few ideas and a few things that are coming up, including I'm going to go back to some of the past podcasts, I think, and create a handout or some tip sheets from people, getting their ideas now based on what we know. That'll be there at the Booking Protect website, so check it out, bookingprotect.com. Make sure you get the Talking Tickets newsletter. You can get it by sending me an email, dave@davewakeman.com. Put Talking Tickets in the newsletter. I'll get you there, or you can go to my website, davewakeman.com, and you'll see a newsletter link. You go there, you can sign up. It's going to be fantastic. Make sure that you join me on the 14th and 15th of July for the NATB's virtual conference. I'm going to be talking about relationships, which is super, super important, with Ken Solky from Las Vegas Tickets, Patrick Ryan from Eventellect, Dr. Corey Gibbs. Corey and I go way back. If you listen to the podcast at all, you know we went to college together at the University of Alabama. Roll Tide, baby. Woo! So without further ado, for real this time, is my conversation with Phil Hanson from Q-It on the Business of Fun. I want to welcome Phil Hanson from Q-It to the Business of Fun podcast. How are you, Phil?
I'm doing well, Dave. Thanks for having me on. Thanks for giving Q-It a little attention on air here.
Oh, this is going to be fun because we're going to get to talk about a couple things that I think are really awesome. We're going to talk about some experience, and we're going to talk about money, which is my favorite topic, and we are going to talk about selling tickets. So, I mean, what more fun can we have on a Tuesday afternoon?
It's hard to beat. It's hard to beat, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, some people, they go do other stuff. We talk about tickets and money. It's going to be great. So let me start out by asking you to give people just a little bit of an overview of Q-It, because maybe some people aren't necessarily 100% certain about what you work on, but I think it's very cool.
Yes. So Q-It, the product, is built to control high demand online events. In the ticketing space, that is typically on sales or membership subscription campaigns or major tour announcements, all these fun things that if you haven't been a part of as an industry insider, you have participated to because you love live entertainment, music, the performing arts. As a company, Q-It was founded in 2010. So this year, coming up here, we will be celebrating our 10th anniversary, and we really got our start in the ticketing space and online ticketing, helping bring a level of online fairness to ticket on sales. And we have our roots actually in Copenhagen, Denmark, is where our home office is. 3 years ago, coming up on 3 years ago, we expanded into the U.S., into Minneapolis, where we have our office here to service and sell to the North American market.
Yeah, and it's interesting. So we talked about high demand on sales, and I think that this is really interesting for people because I think it's interesting for people who are listening to the podcast because they work with them. I think it's also interesting for people who maybe stumble onto the podcast or are unfamiliar with how the technology works, is because an on sale, you never hear about it if it goes well.
You only hear about the on sale when there's a mess. Something like, I don't even think, what's a really great one that like had some complications. I think Taylor Swift had some issues a couple of years back, or, sometimes like with some of the lately, maybe the big bands like Pearl Jam or something, they've had some issues with their on sales.
Yeah.
And so people don't necessarily understand, they only hear about these things when they go wrong. But from your perspective and from my perspective, this is cool because it helps provide a better experience for people who are in the waiting room, right? Actually, I know for sure a great example that I just had because people sent me tons and tons of emails was the Pearl Jam concert at Madison Square Garden, which was, I don't know how many tickets went on sale for that, but it's, Madison Square Garden, a big venue, but not huge. And people were talking about being in the waiting room for a half hour to an hour or more and then not getting any tickets. So can you talk to us about a little bit about what the experience is like and how Qt helps improve on that? Because I think if you are sitting in a waiting room for 30 or 45 minutes as a consumer, it's going to be a little frustrated. And I don't think necessarily everybody understands what the technology does or why it's important.
Yeah, that's a great example, a great picture really to paint. Because what is really happening with Qt on an on sale is that a user or a fan is redirected basically to the waiting page. There, as soon as they land there, we're already, and our customers, who we partner with closely, are already bringing like a sense of legitimacy and order to the experience, which already alleviates some stress. From there is certainly a wait, like you described. It could be 10 minutes, it could be 30 minutes, it could be 45 minutes. And some of the psychology of queuing and really what's happening, and actually I think everyone listening can probably find an example in their everyday life where they weren't told how long their wait would be, and that wait seemed like forever. Right. But if you are given time, some sort of time or some sort of number of people in front of you, like our tool is providing our customers to communicate to their customers, you can make a qualified decision on, is this worth my wait? Or is there something better I should be doing with my time? Is my time more valuable? Right. That economic decision. And consumers feel respected, really, and empowered when they're actually given that choice, right? So you typically have that, and then in turn, providing that information, what we do see is people typically waiting, right? So even if it is at 30 or 45 minutes, I'm a big Pearl Jam fan too. Last time I saw them, it was at a festival just outside of Amsterdam. And I get excited just talking about it. So those numbers bring a little bit of fact to the like waiting experience, right? And so there is definitely that part of it, right? And so that psychology of queuing and or waiting in line, being given information, often our product even having video. At least one of our major ticketing customers has basically their own studio where they are then showing video from that studio throughout the on sale waits that they might be having for their customers. So a lot of things that can be done in terms of engaging with your audience too, to make that wait go faster, even if it is this precise amount of time or precise amount of people in front of you.
Well, let me ask you a question that probably is going to sound a little bit naive or, dare I say, stupid. And if it is, it's my question. So people may know I'm naive and stupid, so it doesn't matter. But in a way, doing it the way that you do it helps recreate that sense that you used to have if you stood in line, right? I remember very vividly standing in line to get tickets to the very first Florida Marlins game back in 1993 when I was in high school. And in a way, by giving you a time and giving you kind of an estimate of number of people in front of you and, spelling it out a little bit more, doesn't it sort of virtually recreate that feeling a little bit more? Because I know some people, I don't want to say people enjoyed standing in line for tickets or waiting for the box office to open, but at the same time, I know a lot of people who are probably somewhere around the age that both of us are, who have very fond memories of standing in line waiting to get tickets. It was like a rite of passage.
Yeah, absolutely. There is a nostalgia factor that comes in there too, and it's often really helpful to explain it that way too, because people can then instantly imagine the level of fairness that is being brought to that on sale. Again, hey, people aren't, we remember it this way, but people are only the biggest fans are waiting outside of the box office now, right? And so what happens is it is introduced a new amount of people that can try to get the tickets that our second tier of biggest fans then who are showing up on that on sale online. Really excited about that content. And so it's bringing that sense of order, first in, first out, and hopefully making people feel as that they're getting that fair experience. Most of the other products in the market are not able to do first in, first out. So you can imagine being a huge fan of something and showing up and being thrown into a jumbled mess and tickets being thrown in the air, and you either grab one or you don't, right?
Oh yeah.
So it's a great way to think of it, and also think of how, going back to that psychology of queuing, okay, when you're standing in line, you can see the number of people in front of you, right? You can see if the line bends around 3 blocks or 2 blocks or what, this sort of thing. So that's a really, those were some indicators that you had as to how far you had to go, and we are providing the tools to let people know how soon in an online wait they can get through.
Well, in a way too, and again, this is like an obvious question, but one of the things that people, regular customers and regular folks, complain about or talk about, or it seems to be an issue that gets brought up pretty regularly, is this idea of transparency. And doing, having a tool or having, some sort of platform that allows you to somehow show, the number of people who are there or the number of people who are trying to log in, some of this information like you're talking about, doesn't that help with the transparency a little bit? Because I know that the holy grail, if you hear the really loud voices go off, is that, well, just tell us how many tickets are on sale, right? Which, I don't know. I never know how many iPhones are on sale when I go to buy an iPhone, right? But so why would a ticket be any different? But how does something like waiting room technology help with transparency?
Yeah. Well, I think to touch on that, we're so often seeing demand exceed the supply that it doesn't matter if it's 5 or 5,000 or 50,000 when 100,000 people are showing up online, right? So totally agree with you there. The transparency again is something that our customers are taking with their customers. We are unlocking insights around what look to be real website users are showing up, how many let's say fake, simulated, aka bots, right? And what some of those were doing on that, and that level of transparency is something that our customers can act on. And partner with venues, promoters, this sort of thing, to know and to anticipate on future on sales. So this transparency all the way to the consumer is we provide the tools really to help with that, in terms of that wait and expected time and this sort of thing into the site. But I think using the data that we are helping collect on these on sales really is creating some good conversation between different members of the ecosystem here on what to expect in the future, and also how do we continue to make sure that tickets are getting into fans' hands the way we'd like them to.
Yeah, and let me ask you about this, because you talked about insights into, how many real users are versus bots or simulated users, fake users, whatever we want to call it today. Mm-hmm. What does the percentage look like? Because, and I'm not trying to put you on the spot. It was just, I was highlighting something that I saw recently, and it was like over 40% of traffic just in general on the internet is not real. As I think what it was. It was somewhere around there, 36 to 46, somewhere in that range. Does that mirror what you see, or is it different for tickets?
It's a pretty good baseline. The content is what drives the nefarious activity, or attracts the nefarious activity, I should say. Some of that internet traffic that you're talking about is just out scraping content, good and bad, right? Like Google, we wouldn't be able to search it, use its search without it crawling the internet with bots. But other people doing that for lesser value to the greater good and more of their own. But for the bots that we see on sales, these ones are trying to buy those tickets, or they are trying to hold inventory while the on sale is going on, and they're doing technical calls to secondary market sites to see if it's worth a decent return on their investment to actually buy that and then resell it, right? So they can wreak havoc on an on sale in that sense, where it can look almost like it's sold out, but in fact, if tickets on if the traffic and activity on the secondary market is not keeping up with the value that they feel like they should be getting if they were to continue through that purchase, they'll let it go, and then you can have nightmare scenarios like your front row of a performing arts center being empty because it's the bots just held on to that inventory, and people didn't fully understand that was there, or re-released out into to the public later. So eventually that gets sold right on popular content, but it can. The arbitrage they're playing can kind of mess with everyone's experience, from the primary seller to the fans who think it is sold out and it's not, and so on, right?
Right. And I guess the question for me then becomes is if you do have bots that are jamming up your site and they are kind of wreaking havoc on the situation, and you do encounter a situation where all of a sudden it looks like the event's sold out, and then you have like a performing arts center, which is the example you used, and the front row not sold out. It creates this environment where it's costing people money, and where the consumer doesn't come back, right? The customer doesn't come back because they go, oh my God, the Hamilton on the Tuesday night in May is sold out. I'm not going to be able to ever see Hamilton. It's just it's nuts. How often is something like that happening? And, I guess, how does it work to stop that? What does that look like? Cause I'm curious.
So that's happening very often because, a number of the secondary sites, don't require proof of owning the ticket in order to, put a post up, right? So essentially they're selling, someone can be selling futures, on there. Selling something they don't even own yet, but using that bot to secure that inventory that they're thinking about buying, putting a price out there, seeing if that price would be taken by someone. And if it would be, they purchase from primary and then almost immediately transfer to secondary, right? So, that is happening quite often. And the heartbreaker on that is that's happening on really big on sales, with some really distributed attacks. And it's happening even like, on sales that maybe don't go, with a full sellout right away even. So, it can even influence initial numbers on those ones, right? So that's
I would say maybe it's even worse on the smaller shows that are struggling, right? Because if you're looking at some of the data across the industry, it's not your blockbuster shows, not your big shows, but like a lot of these shows, maybe 50% is a really good number for capacity, right? Or, somewhere between 50 and 60%. So every seat that in that case makes a difference.
Yes, absolutely. And also, your sports base, it's the same thing, right? People can be doing the same thing on empty seats and game day and this sort of thing. So it's a pretty pervasive issue. So
I'm going to ask about one of my favorite topics now, money. Well, I mean, it goes without saying that something like this helps with the revenue. So how does, knowing that we've talked about the bots and we've talked about some of the way that the brokers and the resale works on this, and the challenge of leaving seats empty, how does smoothing out the demand and how does managing your waiting room better, what kind of revenue results are we seeing?
Yeah. So I think where we come in, again, this is a little bit the interesting part of the conversation often for us when we're talking with people that are sometimes talking about ticket margins, this sort of thing, is that the monetization is coming from almost like marketing types of terms in a way. Lifetime value, when you're talking about getting tickets into the hands of fans and not into bots, and fans and into the hands of fans at the price point that's been agreed to by all the parties that are involved in that decision. That is in all the work that went into determining that. That is, part of it. Cause right, like, we will hear from time to time and there's people out there not using us because, they're of the perspective, well, we're going to sell all our tickets anyway. It might get ugly. But they're going to all sell. So, that's the important thing to us. Or, you can be realistic about that and still say there's this lifetime value that people coming back to the venue or coming back to that artist or coming back to that team really should be concerned with, and also is it aligning with your brand, right? Is this experience that you're providing like consistent with the quality of touch with your organization, whether you're a ticketing platform, a venue, a team, a performing arts center that takes a ton of pride in the historic air that you breathe every time you step in there and the experience that people have in that incredible space. It factors in a lot to that, right? So monetization also is interesting for some of our customers are what you might call emerging customers, where essentially they get like a ticketing platform grows by having the next big event, finding a great niche maybe, but other than that, getting their next big event right, and then they can put on that next RFP. We've done events with this many tickets sold, this much demand, this much reach, and that helps them move up the food chain in this industry, right? So there's a couple different ways that we're touching on monetization there, but yeah, that's realistically the way we're helping with monetization is to it's a bit of a brand play and a lifetime value experience, and securing the relationships that you already have, right? Having a bad experience is enough. There's it intakes is a great topic and something that people continue to come back to. Well, we're not competing against the venue down the street. We're competing against that new movie on Netflix, that new season, whatever on HBO. Competing in so many different ways that providing great experience is coming to the top as a way to keep people engaged in your line of business.
Oh, absolutely. And you bring up two really important things, right? Which is, number one, whoever you thought your competition was in the past, it's them plus probably 100 other things, right? Because most of us are walking around with the access to the greatest entertainment ever in our pocket.
Yep.
Most of the time. But one of the really cool things that you talked about, and I didn't know you were going to bring this up because I didn't know this was a part of how you were positioning the brand, was the lifetime value, because that's something that people have been asking me a lot about lately, and it was part of the result of a survey I did on my website. But lifetime value and this idea that if I don't set up this experience that's holistic, that befits what I want to give to my customers, the likelihood of them leaking out and going somewhere else increases at every challenge or every friction point in the process. And, so like highlighting that is like super, super important, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, go ahead. I didn't mean to step on you.
No, absolutely. I think that's absolutely right. And I think, people can immediately jump to in their mind somewhere where they had a bad experience and what are the things that are tied to it, the company that was involved, right? And they can think of did I elect to use that company, that organization, that that brand again, or did I choose one of the other competing brands, however you want to define competition or competing activities or whatever you'd like to think of there, right? Which is almost overwhelming just when you open up that thought process. What else the beauty of choice that we have.
Right. And it seems to me that, right, and I think we're staying on message here if I say this, right, which is like you talk about, it's easy for people's mind to jump to a bad experience. And a statistic that I saw recently in a book by a guy called It Takes What It Takes, and it's by a guy called Trevor Moawad, who was the brain coach for the University of Alabama when Nick Saban first took over. He talked about these negative images and these negative things. They take up, they have like 10 times greater impact on our thinking and our memory than positive things do. So one of the biggest things that we can do, as in selling tickets or just in life, is to control those negative interactions, those negative those negative moments. And, as I was looking at the notes I made before we were talking here, controlling the experience somebody's having when they're buying a ticket is huge, because even if they don't buy a ticket, or because it's, the demand outstrips what's available, whatever happens, you can still leave a positive impression on somebody if it's handled the right way. And that helps with the underlying issue of the ticket buying process can be very, very frustrating for people who don't work in tickets. And I'll go out on a limb and go, for people who do work in tickets, it can be frustrating sometimes too. No, and that's exactly why what we're doing with our product is trying to empower our customers to give their customers more information and make a decision. Feel that, again, there's a sense of legitimacy and order around the ticket buying process.
we get to sift through plenty of social media feedback, and it's often, thanks for putting this system in place. I didn't get what I wanted, but I was able to determine, that this was worth waiting for, or I was able to submit my email address and be notified that my turn was up, but all tickets were sold out. And by having a system in place, I didn't have to, just wait, with a message, don't refresh, or, even though I want to refresh so bad, our system doesn't require that. This sort of thing, right, is how you can do your best. You will have people who are extremely disappointed. Their daughter knows every lyric to every Hamilton or Frozen song, or what. But for so many other people, it is appreciated. And in general, human psychology, that providing this information about a weight will quell the majority of fears and give people a qualified point to make a decision.
Yeah, the whole idea hits on this thing that I've been talking a lot more with folks about, and it's just be empathetic for the people that you're aiming to serve, because there's so much room for empathy, I think, in the world today. That wherever we can add a little bit to the process, to the purchase or the business relationship or whatever it is, it's a net positive for people, and I think it really sets a great tone for folks. And something like this, as simple as it seems, or maybe as maybe it even seems trivial, or why do I need it? Like you were pointing out earlier, because our tickets are going to sold out. I think it's so super important, because the thing is it just signals to the people that you're selling to that you do care. you are worried about them, and I think that's super important.
Yeah. I mean, we have customers who say their patrons really don't know what to do now. If there's an on sale, they choose not to put us on because they're not expecting a big rush. That they've gotten used to the system being in place and appreciating it for what it is, and it's important to use that empathy though, and listen to customers in the old school channels, right? Not just trying to always find a technology to plug a gap, but actually show some empathy and get out there and talk to them, engage with them, and ask them what works best, and what do they appreciate about the experience, and where are things in their buying experience, their fan experience that could be improved, and they'll probably be fairly honest with you.
Oh my gosh, yes. If I only achieve one thing with all the stuff I do, if I get people to talk to their customers more, I will have achieved a great deal, because what I have found over the years is that if you just ask people, they will tell you exactly what's on their mind. It might not always be great, but I always look at the negative feedback as a great opportunity to build a stronger relationship, because most of the time people are frustrated because nobody listens to them. And people just want to be heard. And so having empathy, going old school and talking to people is a huge competitive advantage for the businesses that do that, at least in my opinion. But
no, absolutely.
But Phil, let me ask you this, because now, since I passed episode 100 now, I've been putting people on the spot. Oh, thank you so much. Who knew? Who knew people were going to listen to this podcast so much? I've been asking for action items. So even if people don't work with me and you at all, I've been trying to give them one or two action items, me and you, to give one or two action items from each episode, so people can take some action off of these things and kind of, do better with their business, sell more tickets, make more money. So for me, so that way, since I put you on the spot, I'll go first. I'm going to say that your last point about going old school and talking to people, that's super important point that I want people to take action on. Even if you just pick one person, one customer a day to talk to them and ask them what they like or what they don't like, I think that's super, super important. The second point that I think was important to me from our conversation that I think people can really take advantage of is think about lifetime customer value and think about what you want that customer path and that customer relationship to look like over time is. Phil, hopefully I didn't steal your two ideas that you were going to talk about.
No, I'll jump off on your first one, and instead of saying talk to another customer, I should probably just say talk to a second one, because no one is really doing it enough, or most people are not doing it enough. But what I'll say instead of talk to a customer,
I'll take that as an answer too. That would be
yeah. Okay. That's one A. So I'm going to do three things then. That's 1A. 1B is to go in your organization and find someone that you're not engaging with on a daily basis, but has a unique perspective on your business, whether it's because of the function, whether it's because they're just a great fountain of wisdom. And make sure that conversation happens in the next 2 weeks as well.
Yeah.
Then the other one, maybe it's the state of the world that we're in right now, but the other one is just be optimistic. And isolate a situation when you're about to not be optimistic and put on the white hat of optimism and look at the situation through that lens and what might come from it. So often, like you're saying, people will be happy to tell you about a rough time, but actually, how do we put on a white hat and find the opportunity in that? I think that's a big part of where Kiewit is happily delivering this service, where at first pass, people might say, I'd never want to make someone wait online. But when you look at all the things that stack up to pointing to it being a really good idea in many cases, we're happy to bring that service out to the world, happy to help people maybe on their first on sale after running thousands of these through our system, tens of thousands, and think of other opportunities to be optimistic, to put on the white hat in some of these trying times, because there is opportunity in it. There's happiness out there, and there's definitely opportunity in putting on that optimism hat. And not to say always keep your rose-colored glasses on, but throw them on as the spring and summer arrive here a little more often than you did in the winter, and so on.
I mean, being optimistic, I don't know if anybody's ever talked about optimism on here before, but I think that's really like a really great point, because if we are we're creating these magical moments for folks, right?
Yes, absolutely.
So if we can't be optimistic and excited about that, then there's bad times ahead.
Yeah.
And if somebody is struggling, I did mention the book. It Takes What It Takes by Trevor Moawad. It talks about thinking neutrally, and it really, to highlight and jump off of your point, so make it 3B here, would be, and I found this helpful, it's to try to eliminate some of the emotional connection to some of the bad, negative things that are going on around you, and just don't give them the power. So you kind of maintain a neutral perspective, and you go, that's interesting. That person, because around here in DC all the time, people are always constantly almost taking me out in traffic or when I'm walking, and it becomes very frustrating. So it's just so what am I going to do? I'm going to tackle a car? No, I'm not. so just to be able to understand that and go, hey, look, this did happen, but instead of being angry about it, how can I deal with it? And I think that helps with the optimism. And I think being optimistic and being excited in what we're dealing with here, I think it's a super important point to make. So, and I'm glad I didn't even see that coming. That was amazing. Phil, where can people find you on the internet?
I'm I love LinkedIn. And my name is Hanson. I work for a Danish company, so people might think it would end in SEN, but my background, my ethnicity is actually more in the Norwegian lines of the Scandinavian heritage. But there, and then my Twitter handle is my name without vowels, should you struggle with figuring out what my last name ends with. So just PHLHNSN, so Phil Hanson. There you may get a little bit more content about sports and pop culture, and even occasional photos of my lovely wife and two kids, 1 and 3. So tons of photo opportunities there as well. But yeah, happy to connect with people in the digital space there as well.
Awesome. Well, Phil, thank you so much for doing this.
Thanks, Dave. Always great to talk.
I totally nailed it this time. That was me and Phil Hanson talking. Woo! You know, a little rusty around the edges, but we're going to get back to it. All right, make sure you check out my website. It's davewakeman.com. Follow me on social media. I'm at David Wakeman on Twitter. You can find me on LinkedIn, right? You can even find me on Facebook and Instagram, but really all you're going to see are pictures of my keto cooking and probably stuff about Tottenham Hotspur and Alabama football. So, you know, buyer beware there. Make sure you check out my friends at Booking Protect. Great partners, great people. We're doing some new content around recovery, rebuilding trust, things that'll help people get back on their feet. You can check it out by visiting bookingprotect.com, visiting their blog. Like I mentioned in the intro, both days. Go to wewillrecover.live. There's a great Booking Protect article there about rebuilding trust. There's some great content on the We Will Recover website from me. Goes without saying, I'm a known blowhard, but the guys from Activity Stream, Angela and Joe from Ticketing Professionals in Australia, Andrew and Carol from the Ticketing Professionals in England, NTIX, Jill Robinson and her folks, Made Media, all kinds of great folks. I'm forgetting people, but there's so many great people. Everybody's ambition is really to help get the industry back on its feet, get people back into shows, and get people rebuilding their organizations. It's super important. Like I said before, if you need somebody to talk to, if you just want to hear a voice, or you even just want to make sure I'm real, you can send me an email. It's david@davewakeman.com. I'm happy to be here as a resource. I'm happy to be here just as like somebody to talk to. Make sure you join me on the 14th and 15th of July for the NTIX virtual summit or conference. I forget exactly what the name is, but it's the replacement for the World Ticketing Conference because we can't have it this year in Las Vegas. I'm going to be talking on a panel about relationships with Dr. Corey Gibbs, Patrick Ryan from Eventellect, and Ken Solky from Las Vegas Tickets. So it should be very good. I know that Ken's known for having just some tremendous relationships. I mean, he got called out on Instagram by Floyd Mayweather to be like his official ticket guy. I mean, you can't beat that. Patrick has great relationships in sports, and when I go to places, everybody feels like they know me. So we're going to talk about relationships. I think they're going to be more important than ever before. So check that out at the NATB's website and sign up. As always, look, thank you so much for being here. I'm sorry about the data screw up and the file screw up, but that other episode I put up there, despite the introduction, was probably pretty good. So I got some really great things queued up for us next week and in the weeks going forward. A lot of new technology, a lot of people maybe you haven't heard from before or heard of before. My friend Martin, who used to be in charge of Ticketmaster in Asia, and now he moved back to the UK to be closer to his family. He's coming on. I've got people from Switzerland, and the team from Oxenade, some of those guys coming on. All kinds of great stuff. So we're going to try to help give you some resources, some ideas to think about. At least over here at the Dave Wakeman compound, we're going to try to make ourselves useful. So until next time, thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you soon. Take it easy.